it's Katie. Welcome back to my channel. I have a really exciting video for today. Today I'm going to be doing the Poisonous book tag, which is actually an original book tag. I just created it. I actually love making original book tags. They're some of my favorite videos to do, but I haven't made one since like last summer. This will be my third one. And the reason why I'm doing this one specifically is it's inspired by my book that's being released this summer, so I thought it'd be cool to make a book tag for my own book. I don't know, it sounded good in my head. So if you didn't know, my book The Sweetest Poison is coming out August 12th of 2018. I'll have all of the links down below in the description if you want to look at that. But basically I made a book tag kind of inspired by either like playing off the words of the title, going with like the content and like the themes of the book and just like stuff like that. So let's just get started. So the first question is the easiest one because I felt like it was just necessary to be in here. And that is either a book that has some kind of poison element or like poisoning in it, or just a book that has the word poison in the title. This one has both. I chose Poison Study by Maria V. Snyder. This is an older book. I think it came out in like, I don't know, 2005? And so a lot of people on BookTube haven't read this or just don't really talk about it anymore, but this is a fantastic book. It's the first book in a series. Basically our main character is a prisoner, but she's offered a choice. She can either be executed as planned or she can become the king's new poison taster. So obviously she decides not to die, so then she starts being like the food taster for the royal family in order to make sure there's no poison in their food, and a lot of really interesting things happen after that. It's a really great book. I read this like obviously closer to when it came out, but I would still highly recommend it. I never continued on with the series, so if you have read the rest of the series, let me know how it was, but I really enjoyed this first book. I think I gave it like a 4 out of 5 stars. Question number 2 kind of plays off the saying, you know, like pick your poison, like what's your drink or whatever, and so pick your poison, pick your guilty pleasure book. So for this one I chose The 1000th Floor by Katherine McGee. This just goes for this whole series. I believe 2 of them are out right now. And if you are familiar with me and my reading taste, the fact that I love this series is kind of weird. Like, it's really unexpected, at least for me. It's this like trashy, futuristic Gossip Girl essentially, but I love it. It's so much fun. Basically there's this giant tower in New York City that's 1,000 floors high, and wherever you live in the tower kind of dictates your social standing in society. So our main character lives on the 1000th floor, so she's supposed to be this like perfect human being, and the story revolves around this mystery. Someone falls off the top of the tower and no one really knows what happens. Were they pushed? Did they jump? Did they trip? And so the entire book you're trying to figure out who's gonna die and how is it gonna happen. It's a really fast, light, fluffy, fun book, and it was like just what I needed at the time that I read it. Like, I just wanted something purely entertaining, and that's what this series is. The next question kind of goes with some of the content of my book, and so that's just pick a story with like the best character development. So for this one, it might be a little bit surprising, I chose Heartless by Marissa Meyer. If you're unfamiliar with this book, it's essentially a retelling of Alice in Wonderland, or like an origin story for the Queen of Hearts. And as you know, the Queen of Hearts becomes the villain in Alice in Wonderland, but she's our protagonist, so obviously she starts off as a good guy. So watching her progression throughout the story from being like a really likable character that you're rooting for to like full out villain is just so believable, and it's so well done. Marissa Meyer just like amazingly manages to humanize this villain, and I just loved watching her become this like twisted character. So it's kind of like the opposite of character development that like you would expect, but I just thought it was like really well done. The next question also kind of goes with the content of the book, and that is pick your favorite coming of age story. Even though I don't read a whole lot of contemporary, I realized that the majority of the contemporary that I do read is like coming of age stories, so I had a lot to choose from and I had a hard time picking this one, but I ended up going with This Song Will Save Your Life by Lila Sales. This is a really fun story about this girl who's really struggling and doesn't really fit in at school. She kind of finds her jam in DJing at this like underground club at night, and it's just so interesting. I loved the characters in this. They were just so realistic and so different from anything else I'd ever read. And also, as someone who was like really into music and like going to concerts and that kind of scene in high school, I really related with this. And I don't know, there's just something like really enjoyable about reading about a character who's like really just lost and struggling at the beginning, and then by the end you're like, yeah, you go girl. She's just like figured it out and she's found her groove and she's so much more confident now. I think I give this book a 5 out of 5 stars. It was really, really good. So for the next question, pick a book where like a virus or an illness is a major part of the story. So for this one I chose a really recent read for me, and that was Dread Nation by Justina Ireland. I gave this book I think a 5 out of 5 stars or a 4 out of 5 stars. It was really, really great, so if you haven't read it yet I would highly recommend it, just to throw that out there. It's an alternate history kind of fantasy dystopian story post-Civil War, and there are zombies. So the like major like viral aspect is during the Civil War, all of the dead started to rise because of this virus that turned them into zombies. I think we all know how zombies work. But the story is about, even though slavery is abolished post-Civil War, they start these like combat schools where all African Americans and Native Americans have to go and train and learn how to fight, and then they're forced to be the people to kill off the zombies. It's a really smart book because even though it's like rooted in fiction, it has all of these parallels to things that like actually happened, and even though people weren't put into camps to learn to kill zombies, schools and things like this actually did exist, which I hadn't really learned that much about in school. So reading about this, and there's an author's note at the end that kind of talks about the real schools that did exist. It was just a really entertaining story, but it was also something interesting to learn about. I loved our main character. That was my favorite part of this book. Her voice was so strong and I was so on her side and I was rooting for her the entire time. I loved the voice of this story. If you want a really strong main character, I loved this main character. And so for my last question for this tag is pick a book with a kick-ass character who don't need no love interest. Coming from someone who reads predominantly YA, this was so hard. I went through every book on my bookshelf and every time I thought I found something, I was like, no, they do have a love interest. Like, is there any YA book out there that does not have a romance subplot? Barely any. So the book that I ended up picking is the Jacoby series by William Ritter. This is the third book, Ghostly Echoes. I just picked this one up because this is the one that I'm currently reading and the first one is like buried down there on my shelf. So this series is so much fun, and it's not focused on romance subplots, although there are some every once in a while. It's really focused on the adventure and camaraderie and friendships. It's kind of like a mix of Sherlock Holmes and Doctor Who. Basically we have this investigator, Jacoby, and he and his sidekick, aka assistant, who's actually the main character of the story, go and investigate these supernatural mysteries and crimes. And it's such a quirky and funny and weird series, and I just really appreciate that it doesn't like have a backbone in romance. Not that I don't like romance, like I'm a sucker for a good love story, but it's kind of nice to have a series that's more focused on the plot and more focused on the friendships and the characters rather than like forcing relationships between characters, you know? There are relationships and romance subplots in this series. It just never seems overwhelming, and it's clear that all of these characters would be perfectly fine without a significant other. So it's a really fun series. I would definitely recommend it. I also just got this book and the fourth book in the series off Book Outlet for really cheap, so I think they might still be on there if you want to get them for really cheap. So yeah, that was the Poisonous book tag. Thank you guys so much for watching. Again, I'll leave all of the info for my book that's coming out August 12th down below in the description. But yeah, I'm not going to tag anyone specific to do this today, but if you would like to do this tag, go ahead, I tag you. If you want to follow me on any of my social media, all of those links are down below in the description. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up because it helps my channel out a lot, and subscribe if you're new here. I would love to have you stick around, and I'll just see you guys in my next video very, very soon. Bye.
Up all night on my mind got me thinking, wanna stay, can you give me a reason? I don't think so. I don't think so. I'm in love with someone but I'm not sure she can love someone back the way they love her. I don't think so. I don't think so. Don't be me. If you wanna go, you can leave and leave my heart alone.